Today, we talk to business productizing expert Greg Hickman. If you've ever wondered how you can grow your business without having to work nights and weekends, this episode is for you. You're going to learn a lot of valuable stuff on how to systematize and productize your business so you can live the life you've always wanted to. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to The Friday Habit with Benjamin Manley and Mark Labriola II.
The Friday Habit is for creators, entrepreneurs, and agency owners looking for actionable ideas on how to grow their business and be more profitable.
We'll pull from our combined knowledge of over 20 years and interview thought leaders that will inspire you and give you the motivation you need to kick your business into high gear. Buckle up. It's Friday. Hey. It's Friday.
It's Friday.
What's up, Ben?
Hey, guess what?
What?
We got a new review.
I love reviews. Who doesn't love reviews?
I know,
especially
right?
when they're good ones.
I know, 5-star review from, you may know this person. I love my wife because she's hot. Do you know that person?
I love my wife because she's hot. Wait a second. Who is this guy?
I don't know who this is. But they said, cool ideas, ! These guys have some concrete ideas that I think can really help me. Glad I found it and liked that they got to the point pretty quick. Thank you. I love my wife because she's hot. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Awesome.
And along with our typical review challenge, Mark, how does this work, our review challenge?
So if you're enjoying the podcast, please rate us in the Apple Podcast app or wherever you listen or you happen to listen to your podcast. So get on there, leave a review. It helps us reach more people and grow this community. And so one of the things that we like to do is we like to generate a random noun and then have you somehow work that into your review. So, Ben, what is our random noun for this week?
The random noun is contribution.
All right.
Good luck working that into your review.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I'm excited to introduce to you today Greg Hickman. Greg is the founder and CEO of Alt Agency. He has worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs ranging from Jay Baer, John Lee Dumas, Nerd Fitness, and Chris Ducker, among many other up-and-coming business leaders. Alt Agency has now taken over 150 agency owners through their framework and methodology. Greg, welcome to the Friday Habit.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're super excited. I found you through Chris Stowe's show, as I was mentioning to you earlier. And man, I've been kind of on this journey of trying to productize my business for a while. So I have two different things going on. I've got Knapsack, my main web design business. We've kind of worked on productizing our services there. So we have kind of a service we provide where we do a one-day website build on Squarespace, and we have some systems built around that. And then just started a new thing called Story Site, where we take the Story Brand framework, if you're familiar with it, which is a marketing framework. And we've built some website templates that go along with that. So if someone can buy one, we can kind of take them through that process and then do kind of a done with you type thing where it's very productized, systemized, and efficient. So all that to say, as I'm working through this stuff, I'm like super excited to talk to you because all the stuff you're saying in these videos has resonated and given me words kind of to put with some of the stuff we're working on. So thanks for all the value you're putting out there.
Yeah, I love it. I'm happy to hear that. And we definitely need to circle back on that, what'd you call it, Story Site?
Yeah, Story Site, yeah. Yep.
One of our, someone on my team, Ryan, he's one of the earlier certified Story Brand people.
Oh, awesome.
And he helps a lot of people kind of take in the Story Brand methodology and a lot of his past experience in copywriting. And he has kind of like a coaching online training business around that, and then also coaches many of our clients. And he's a client of ours as well.
Nice.
But he's successfully, in his eyes, which I think is, for me, I think is great. He's removed himself from that website part, but it's always a piece that comes up in conversation. So like, I mean, we need to connect you too, because there could be some synergy for you guys for sure.
Awesome. I'd love to do that.
Look at that. Making deals.
Making deals. Making it happen.
Oh, we're live, by the way.
Greg, so hey, I want to kind of hear your story about where you started and how you kind of got to where you are, because I think a lot of our listeners, they're probably in the day-to-day, they're just grinding away. They maybe have some sort of skill or passion for something, and so they've tried to monetize that in a certain way, but then they're finding themselves kind of looking off into the future, being like, all right, I can't maintain this if I want to grow to where I want to go. And so I would love to kind of hear your story a little bit about, where you came from and how you got into your business. And then I'd, like to hear at what point you decided, like, all right, I need to productize this and kind of move into that realm.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, out of college, I went into big brand agency, a company part of Omnicom.
So did you study something in college, like marketing or something like that?
I went to a small liberal arts college in upstate New York called Skidmore, small enough where you couldn't like focus on marketing specifically. So I had a business management major, but I definitely, as I started to specialize or, choose the courses I was taking, I definitely gravitated towards the marketing and advertising stuff. And while I was there, actually, over one of the summers working at Gold's Gym, I met now one of my best friends. His name is Chris Logsden, who is now he went on to amazing graphic designer, logo creator. He ended up becoming the lead creative now for Vayner Media.
Oh, wow. Cool.
And did the VaynerX logo and pretty much every subdivision of Vayner. He's designed all their logos. He's now like the head art director for Sasha Group, which is like their now spin-off for small business. And so he's like one of those obsessive creatives, specifically around logos, but like he's the one that really got me into the creative side. And he was a year ahead of me and started at that agency and was like, you got to work here. Like, we'll live together, blah, blah, blah. So like I moved in, like we became good friends. And, that got me started in this agency where we represented Pepsi, Unilever, but I was like a project manager, kind of just making sure things got through. So I got to work with all the different departments within a creative agency, production, art direction, account management, the studio, like all those things. And so I really I've always been the type of person that loves to understand how things work from like the plumbing perspective. So very early on, I'm like, all right, like I understand how this system works, how projects flow through, like where bottlenecks are. And so in some ways, like that's like that generalist element of me, it has become a strength. But I've also had the ability to specialize, which, from a marketing perspective, it has been really powerful. So long story short, big agency into a small boutique agency, ended up a couple of different startups in between there, trying to figure out my own thing, failure. And I went to started a blog on the side while I was at a media company. And that was on a whole different topic. And that's like kind of what got me into podcasting, like speaking to online entrepreneurs. And then I ended up on the client side, responsible for hiring agencies and consultants and all of that stuff before I kind of broke out on my own. And then I went through one agency that was a complete bomb before what became Systemly, which was really at its simplest, like a funnel building automation agency for online course creators and personal brands that specifically were using Infusionsoft at the time. And so we basically worked with people like John Lee Dumas and a handful of others that were using Infusionsoft to sell their courses, their masterminds, their coaching, and kind of became like the team behind the scenes, making their lives easier by installing automation and all of that stuff. And that took off really quickly as a done for you service perspective. And that's really like, we were full service in like everything automation. Like we didn't do ads or copywriting. So like, I guess in some sense it wasn't full service, but like within the realm of automation, we were full service.
Yeah.
Everything was project based. And that was like where we started feeling the need to start productizing. And we've went through literally every evolution, which is why I think we help our clients so well, because it's like, I've done courses, I've done coaching, I've done productized, I've done full service. I came from full service, like I came from boutique, like all of those experiences kind of have melded into like how we operate now.
Yeah. So you essentially were charging a retainer or some sort of fee to create funnels for online gurus, right? I mean, is that kind of where you came from,
Yeah.
right? And then at what point were you thinking like, all right, we could go out there and get more work? We could advertise, we could do more Facebook ads, or we could start having essentially we can stop working for money and have money work for us.
Yeah. So I think like most agencies and even service providers, like drool at this notion of MRR, monthly recurring revenue. So like we launched with like, hey, we only work with you as a retainer model, and great idea to start. Not scalable when you're full service, and I'd argue that even as productized, there's a lot of flaws in it, depending upon how you do it. And so everyone talks about, recurring being like the holy grail. And it was great because, as we were growing, we were kind of just building on top of each and every client. But very quickly, I mean, if successful, very quickly you start to feel the friction and the resistance, and you start to hit a wall. And at our peak, we were like a team of, I think like 12 or 13, not all full-time, probably like half of that was full-time. We're sort of averaging out at like $65K a month in revenue with like almost nothing to show for it, except waking up to fire drills, being yelled at, feeling like an employee with 20 bosses, which many of those mistakes were definitely our fault, but inherently, labor decreases in value over time. And so the longer that we were with someone, the more it felt like we were getting pulled into like being a part of their team. And that's where things really started to fall apart. And we hit this wall where it's like, okay, like we're doing well at revenue. People think we're doing great. Like we hate our lives. We're not happy. We all wake up miserable and like not pumped to do what we're doing. Like, why is this? What's going on? And thankfully, I had a mentor at that time who was like helping me look at the numbers, and we realized that, all right, in order to hit like the next level or tier or whatever echelon of revenue, I needed to obviously hire one more, call it account manager, that could handle 8 to 10 clients. But like we didn't have 8 to 10 more clients, so like instantaneously bringing this person on, even if they took on one client, I was officially losing money. And so we were kind of at this classic situation where like I find most early agencies find themselves of, okay, like I need more help, but I can't afford the help. And so what do I do? And like, I mean, we've raised rates, we did all the things, and it just wasn't working. And so when I started looking at the math, I'm like, even if I got this one other person, that allows us to get to this amount of revenue. Even if we like fixed our profit margins, I'm still not making more than I was making when I was working in a full-time job. So like, what the heck am I doing? Right. And I'm like, and then I started doing the math again. I'm like, all right, in order to get to the point where I'm paying myself and having a business that I like, I've just created the very thing that I escaped in the agency world, which is like, I didn't want that model. I don't want hundreds of employees, and let alone necessarily 50 employees. And some of my perspective on those things has changed, but that's where I was at that point. And so we looked at like the 80-20, what were we doing that like we enjoyed doing, we were really good at, that like we could sell that, where we weren't getting pulled into like the administrative side of all the stuff that we did. And so we kind of looked at that, and there were like 3 things that we did the most of: like evergreen webinar funnels, live webinar funnels, and like migrating people to Infusionsoft. So we started selling those as one-off packages at like a fixed price. Then we realized the migrating is very variable based on like what someone's coming to us with. So we killed that one because that was also miserable. So we were basically just selling the webinar funnels, and then on the back end, we'd bring them into the retainer. And the clients that came into the retainer off the back end of the webinar project, like, were just better clients because we trained them how to be good clients going through that project. And so in that first phase, it was very much done with you, like, hey, like, here's structure. I'm going to need 7 emails here, 8 emails there. Here's kind of the narrative. Here are some examples. You go write the copy because you're the personal brand. Like, it needs to be in your voice. You go do that. And then we're going to assemble the funnel. And so like we made it do all the magic. They gave us the assets, and like we assembled everything. And then we would get in the situation where it was like, and tell me if I'm just going way too deep, but I do think this is probably helpful for some people.
Yeah, I love it.
It's like, I'm like, okay, we did our part. And like, we're waiting 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks for the copy that they're supposed to get to us.
Yep.
What should be like a 10-day process is turning into like 6 months because like they can't get around to doing their part.
Ben knows about that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I would love to share how we fixed that, but I don't want to interrupt. Continue. I want to hear how you fixed it.
Yeah. So version one was we don't start our work until we have all the assets, but once we have them, it'll be done in five to 7 business days tops.
Perfect.
And so, like, if you want it by this date and we don't get the copy by this date, we don't hit that date. So, like, we're gonna sign an agreement that says that, and let's get rolling. And so that changed it for sure. But then we also realized, well, why don't we just, if we assemble the funnel for them, why don't we just show them how to copy and paste the emails that they wrote into where they belong? And so we started doing that. And I was like, wait, we can be working with more than one client at a time. Like, let's bring on 10 all at the same time. And so, like, we basically we recorded training on how they could take the copy, and like we codified everything that we did. So like, it was like, hey, look at the document labeled this, copy that, go to this place where it's labeled the exact same thing and copy and paste it there.
Nice.
It's like we like showed them how to do it. And then we were able to basically get a client, get paid. And the second we assembled the main piece, send them the training on how to copy and paste it. It's like, hey, whenever you want this to be done, just put your copy in there, but like, that's on you. So our work here is done. Like, see you later. And that was like version one of like our like high ticket consulting offer, which has evolved now in multiple iterations to like our flagship program, which is called Foundations. And so it was just like multiple iterations. And I think the thing that honestly, I just kind of, this is going to sound probably stupid that it took me this long to figure it out. I think I knew it. I just hadn't articulated it. You have to specialize before you productize. Because so much of a successful productized service comes from having seen the patterns and knowing where the bottlenecks and the gaps are in the actual delivery process. And I see a lot of people launching into something that's productized, like in theory out of the gate, and it's like really clunky and like doesn't necessarily get off the ground, if at all. And it's because they've never actually gone through those processes one-on-one, solve that problem before. Like, they just kind of assumed it was a problem, or they saw someone else doing it and they just mimicked it. So I do think, like, because we went from like everything automation to those 3 campaigns to only those 2 types of funnels, and we did that for a little while, like, I was able to take that thing that we were doing one-on-one into one-on-one done with you, into one-to-many done with you, into group consulting, into coaching. And like we literally went through every progression to get to where we're at now. And I, in many ways, feel like you don't need every single one of those steps, thankfully, because of our process now and what we teach. But like, you're going to have to go through a couple iterations in some way, shape, or form to kind of get there. And for us, it continues to evolve, and it should. Every time we make it better, it like profit margin goes up. Usually we gain efficiency, and like it just gets better. Client results get better. And so like it just keeps building on top of each other, each and every little improvement we make.
So I have a question for you. Brand Viva we're more of like a content, agency. So we're creating, videos, podcasts, things like that. I think a lot of our listeners are designers, and they're people who do, create something. I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around, like, okay, how do I systematize that? Like, I can understand where you came from, because it's a lot of copywriting and these funnels, and it seems like, okay, this seems like something that can be systematized. But, if a client comes to me and says, hey, we want an about us video, or we want this, I mean, it almost sounds like, man, I need to change my business model into something else and stop making videos, stop making podcasts.
Yeah. I mean, customize or productize is fundamentally a model shift.
Yeah.
And in my interview with Chris, where we talked about kind of this, like, there's obviously more logistical hurdles when it's as you get into more of the creative type services. And what I say to that is a few things. Like, you have to kind of look at your business in a different way. One, consider kind of a model shift or adding on a revenue stream that is complementary to that done for you customized service. And that's kind of where that revenue stream will come from. So it's like, hey, maybe you don't productize exactly what you're doing now, but you add on something that is complementary that can either feed into the custom stuff, or even be on the back end of the custom stuff, so that you have revenue coming from more than one place, which I think as an agency owner, like, somewhere we got convinced that like we could only sell these kind of projects and retainers. Like, you should have multiple streams of revenue. And that's really what we preach. But in a case where it's like the example that came up is like logo creation, fairly custom. And, what I talked about on the interview was that book Built to Sell, which like full service creative shop, they specialize into logo, and the productization is more on the back end, like internal versus like an like no one says, hey, we're a productized service. Like nobody actually says that. It's not like a marketing thing. It's the benefit of productizing is you're solving a specific problem and you market to that problem. But in the logo example, like the whole book is talked about how they streamlined their process of logo creation so that they create more logos faster, more effectively, so they can serve more clients, thus make more money. And so I think and this is where a lot of our clients start, is like you need to start to systematize and simplify all of the acts and activities that happen in and around the creative effort. So like, cool, you sell custom motion graphics or logos, sweet, but like your sales process should be the same every single time. Systemize that. How you onboard a client should be the same every single time, no matter what. Systematize that. How you get clients, like we can automate and systemize that. Like how you generate leads, like how you communicate with your clients, like once they're inside, like all of those things, that kind of how you handle billing and all of those things can be streamlined so that all of your effort and actual energy and bandwidth is used on the thing that it should be used for, which is the creative act, right? And so I think for some individuals and some agencies that are like super customized and creative, like that's going to be your winning bet, and you'll just be more efficient, thus more profitable, more predictable. Hiring people will be easier because you'll have these repeatable processes and method to generating the creative deliverable, but you're still going to be designing a logo, right?
Yeah. So it's essentially like systemizing all the things around the creation of something, which then allows you to be more efficient and probably more timely, which in turn allows you to do more business.
Yeah. And like in your example, like the about video, right? Like you could easily come up with like, hey, like depending upon the types of clients we work with, like there's kind of like 3 scripts that we essentially use, 3 frameworks for the about video. In the first 30 seconds, we're talking about this. And then, the next minute is this. And then there's these 3 bullet, like that's a framework. Like that's going to make you churning these things out a whole lot easier. And guess what? You start utilizing that yourself. When you roll out, hey, client, like you can't afford us to come film this for you. So here's a local videographer, or use your own camera and you film it. Here's the framework. Here are 5 examples of other people that have, like, here's their framework, their script, and their output. Like, mimic that. And for a more affordable price, like, then you're going to send us the video and we're going to edit it. And on your side, you might have, each of those frameworks, like you might have different motion graphics that like a library of things that you can pull
drag
in,
and drop.
Like it doesn't have to be the same every time, but like you can have like a quiver of different, reusable assets that will make your production a whole lot easier, but still give them a unique deliverable that they're going to be happy with. And so like, we just turned that into a done with you experience just now. And like many people have been like, whoa, I didn't think that's possible. And I really haven't found many scenarios where you can't have some elements of done with you in there. I think the key thing that might kind of play in for some people is that it might not be serving the same type of client that you're serving now. Like it might be like a different type of client that might need that, but that opens up who you can serve. Like maybe it's because they couldn't afford you from a budget perspective, but maybe it's, hey, maybe you only serve the Fortune 500 and like that might not work as effectively at Fortune 500, but like now all those SMBs that you've been turning down, like now you have like a 10K offer that they can afford. And now you have like a whole new revenue stream that doesn't necessarily require a ton more work, but allows you to market to kind of a new audience.
Well, yeah, and it seems like, and I think you kind of said this earlier, where it's like, the dream is to productize something, because now you go from maybe a local audience to an international audience, right? Where you're reaching millions and millions of people through the internet and through ads. And then if they buy a $20 product, if a million people buy a $20 product, you're like an overnight millionaire, so it's just like,
yeah. Yeah,
you know how that is, overnight. Right? I mean,
yeah.
Kind of like your story.
Button, be rich. See, here and there's some nuance to this, and like it's just the way that it is. But if you were still full service, not full service, but maybe if you were full service and still did everything customized, in order, like the reason that most businesses have to rely on referrals and word of mouth is because they don't necessarily solve the same problem every time. And it's relying on their existing clients to fall into a conversation with someone else that has somewhat in the ballpark of a similar problem. And they're like, oh, you should talk to my agency. Like, I'm not really sure if they can even help you, but like, maybe you should talk to them. Like when your own clients can't tell other people what you do, like that's a problem. Mm-hmm. And that's inherently why agencies always, feast or famine, don't know where their next client's coming from because they can't articulate what problem they're solving. Like when you go to paid advertising, you don't advertise necessarily. It obviously helps to like have a niche or a vertical, but you advertise to a problem. You advertise to a solution. You don't advertise like, hey, we could do everything for everybody. That's going to be really not an effective strategy. And so the specialization is really important because it allows you to go out into the marketplace and attract people that will see that message and say, oh, they're talking to me. Mm-hmm. And that's where a lot of the predictability starts to come in. It's like, well, if you're always bringing in new leads that like want what you want because you can share what they need, like it makes it a whole lot easier than just relying on the word of mouth referral game.
No, for sure. And it's interesting. Like I was saying,
you can still deliver it done for you. But you have to solve a problem. Right. Like the specialization, like I said, has to kind of come before the productization because it allows you to speak to the pain, the problem that you solve, which is really how marketing works.
Yeah. Right.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much. This is the first half of the episode. We're going to have the next half next week. So make sure to tune in to next week's episode to finish this out. It's been a great conversation so far, and it's just more value to come. Hey, remember to go to thefridayhabit.com for show notes for each episode. There you can also find links to our website and ways to get in touch. At the bottom of the page, you can download our guide to the Friday Habit System that will show you how to set aside one full day each week dedicated to working on your business instead of in your business. Thanks so much, and remember, live every day like it's Friday.